Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to another edition of Breaking News as we begin a new week. Today is Monday, the 8th day of July, 2024. We're going to begin by following up on the top stories we did yesterday, the monumental stories, what happened in Israel with the ceasefire proposal by Hamas and Netanyahu's response, the election in France, and of course, the latest on the Joe Biden saga of his will he run or will he won't run. Okay, so Netanyahu, now we're going to read that today, that he was actually criticized for stating red lines before the ceasefire discussion begins. In other words, when he came out publicly yesterday and said Israel will not allow this, and this, he had a lot of criticism, even from the Israeli public. Oh, you're trying to kill the hostage deal. No, as we're going to see, he's trying to set the stage for what any hostage deal, any ceasefire would actually be. And so we'll talk about that. The Populist Party in France got more than 1 million votes, more than quite a bit more than a million than the Commie leftist party. However, the Commies win the most seats, and the Populists actually come in third behind Macron's party, which got a lot less votes than the Commies did. And so we're going to talk about that. More Democrats in Congress are calling for Biden to step down as politicians return to Washington today after the July 4th recess. It's supposed to really be rev up today. All the problems there with Biden and the issue of him running or not running. And finally, not a very encouraging story. Russia used a supersonic missile that hit a children's hospital in Kiev, killed 3 people, and shows the possibilities that they have with with this technology. That supersonic missiles something like 10 times faster than anything else that's out there. So we'll talk about that today too. All right, let's look at the top stories. Number one, endangering the deal? Question mark. Reactions to Netanyahu's red lines for the hostage deal pour in. The Prime Minister's office issued a statement on Sunday ahead of a critical Doha summit on the matter of the Gaza hostages and ceasefire talks to be held Wednesday. Now, this is a story from the Jerusalem Post by means of Reuters, by way of Reuters. The statement regarding the red lines of a possible hostage deal and the end of the Israel-Hamas war was issued Sunday evening, and it received responses and criticism, including those from actually within the government, believe it or not. The statement ahead of it's a critical Doha summit on the matter of the Gaza hostages and ceasefire talks to be led by CIA Director William Burns on Wednesday. Here's the question. What in the world is a CIA Director of the United States of America leading the hostage talks? This should be between Israel, and they should negotiate through Egypt, through the mediators, strictly with Hamas. The United States should stay out of it, but they're not. They're trying to control it, obviously. And Burns is a very slippery character, as we've mentioned in the past. The Ynet, that's one of Israelis' online things where they do the news, online news source, I guess you'd call it. They noted that Netanyahu's announcement came shortly before a situational assessment with Defense Minister Yoav Gallant and other military personnel, and came without any prior agreement or consulting beforehand. In other words, what Netanyahu did, he made the statement. He could care less what Gallant says or anybody else. This is Israel's hardline stance. This the red, the line in the sand, as it were, the red lines. And people got upset. Well, he didn't talk to Gallant. He didn't talk to, somebody else. Well, again, he's the leader, and this is what the people of Israel want. A security official privy to the proceedings was quoted by Ynet as stating that this is an improper conduct. It will harm the chance of returning the hostages home. There's also the question of timing here. If you issue the announcement even before the assessment has started, then why hold an assessment? If this is the conduct, then the hostages will not return. Listen to this nonsense. Netanyahu certainly has the right to tell the world and his people what Israel will do and won't do when negotiating with these Hamas murderers. People tend to forget who Hamas is. They're a bunch of murdering terrorists that care nothing about human life, nothing about their own people, the Palestinians. And so if Netanyahu, as the leader of Israel, says, look, we're going to make sure your army does not exist anymore. Your military doesn't exist. Hamas, your leaders aren't going to be in control. And this stuff won't happen again. There won't be any way to smuggle weapons in from Egypt. That's our goal. And that's the goal we're going to end with. And so anything else is secondary. And God bless him for that. That is the right attitude to take. Sadly, there's people still today that just trying to find a way to lose out of a winning situation. All right, now headline number 2. As expected, there were riots in France as the anti-Semitic communist leader claims the election win. And the riots came from the left, even though their party ends up with the most seats. Ugly scenes as hard left crushes Le Pen's dream of power, but fails to win full majority, the headline says. With radical anti-Semite leader, this guy, what's his name? Melancon, Melancon, we'll call him, that's probably easier. Melancon, 72 years of age. He's risking political deadlock as he vows, get this, a 1.50, 150 billion pound, this is from the UK, 150 billion pound spending spree. Also proposing, get this, a 90% tax rate on the highest earners. Again, this is the communists, this is the left. If he gets into power, $150 spending spree on climate change, on immigrants and all that. You think the people of France are going to like that? You think the millionaires are going to stay in France with the 90% taxes on the highest earners? Now, what's interesting, the left's, even though they eventually pick up the most seats, they just still decided to riot. Now, here's the next headline. This is what's really sad. Le Pen's party won the most votes, but awarded the third most seats because of the crazy way things are listed and how, as we talked about yesterday, how Macron colluded with this leftist communist party on these different, they have, hundreds of different little, something like 600 people, 600 different elections are going on to determine who the parliament is. And so you've got all these different seats here and there in small places, larger places. And what they did, these two parties colluded. Macron colluded with the leftists and said, "Okay, here your guy drops out, your people vote for ours, and there our guy drops out, our people vote for yours." And that's exactly what happened. The French, here's the article. The French election results shows the alliance of dishonor between President Emmanuel Macron and the far left effectively blocked the Populist National Party from gaining a majority, despite Le Pen party having won the most votes. According to the French Interior Ministry, Marine Le Pen's national rally, the RN, won the most votes of any party during Sunday's second round of the snap legislative elections at over 8.7 million, good for 32.5% of the vote. When combined with their alliance partners from the disputed Les Républicains, President Eric Ciotti, who earned 1.4 million, good for 5% of the vote. That would take the right wing over 10 million and 37.05% of the vote. Now, in comparison, the far left communist New Popular Front alliance of commies, socialist, environmentalists, led by radical anti-Semitic leftist Jean-Luc Mélenchon, only received about 7 million votes, or 25.7% of the vote. So Le Pen's party got 5% more vote from the citizens of France, and Emmanuel Macron's neoliberal centrist coalition got 6.3 million votes, so only 23% of the entire vote. However, despite receiving 1.7 million votes, fewer than the RN, the New Popular Front was awarded the most seats of any party, currently projected by Le Monde at 182. Macron's coalition won an estimated 168 seats, and despite coming in first in terms of the vote share, the RN party, the Populist Party, and its partners were awarded the third most seats at only 143. Now, the disparity between the votes and the seats in the National Assembly came as a result of the backroom deal struck by Macron and the New Popular Front, in which each side agreed to drop out in favor of a candidate with the best chance of winning and over the Populist Party in over 200 different legislative districts. They joined together and had one of their members drop out and tell their people to vote for the other side, just so Le Pen and the Populists wouldn't win. Just days before forging the pact to stymie Le Pen, Macron had warned that voting for either the National Rally or the New Popular Front, and that's the leftist, would lead to civil war, leading many to question why he's willing to side with the leftist bloc after the first round of voting that saw the RN surge. The 28-year-old leader of the National Rally, his name is Jordan Bardella, he criticized the alliance of dishonor between Macron and the New Popular Front when he said it was to throw France into the arms of the far-left leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Okay, the party will also likely benefit from the fact, this is the far left, that Macron, who is effective at rallying centrists to his banner, will be barred from running for the presidency again because of term limits. So it's just like in the U.S., you only win a couple of terms, and then you're off. There's term limits for the presidency. It's also unclear how effective Macron will be in leading the country for the remainder of his term that will be tethered politically to literal communists. Now, here's what's interesting. Like the UK, the leadership in France will be controlled by a man whose popularity with the public is under 50%. That's the same true with Starmer there in the Labour Party in the UK, where only about a third of the people actually voted for his rule. Same with the UK, about 30 some odd percent, actually even less in France. And yet, here's what they're ending up with. Starmer is a socialist, Mélenchon a communist. Welcome to globalism. Signed 13 of our 25 signs. We're near the end. We talk about globalism, the world being under, some type of globalist rule. Scripture assumes that. And then also sign 14, the world desperately looking for a leader at the time of the end. And that's why the final Antichrist will come to the forefront, because each of these so-called leaders of these parties, even though their particular party is going to rule in the country, don't even have a third of the votes of the people, yet they will lead and they will rule. And so this is what Daniel talked about, what the world will be like at the time of the end in Daniel chapter 2, iron mixed with clay. And we developed this under our globalism question on our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end. Basically, that you've got the haves and the have-nots. The rulers um, basically set the tempo for what the population must do. And in this coalition of 10 nations, it's iron mixed with clay. In other words, it doesn't adhere. The people aren't buying what they're stuck with, but this is what happens with the way these leaders work. So it's interesting how it's all falling into place, isn't it? Just like the Bible said. All right, we go to headline 4. Here comes the saga again. It's one headline story said Biden must resign or be impeached. And someone did a really excellent job of laying out why Biden has to resign or be impeached. And impeached means to bring charges against. Bill Clinton was impeached, he had charges brought against him. Doesn't mean you leave office. There are charges and there's a trial, and they could throw him out if he does not, if he gets overwhelming votes from the members of the Senate. The Senate is the one who holds the trial. Anyway, the case is made he must leave office since it's obvious he cannot govern effectively, and that's what the oath of office they took, that Biden took, that all the other people took, Harris. And if they're going to keep the oath of office, they're going to get this guy out of the presidency and not only not running again, but leaving right now because he's compromised mentally and physically. It's obviously he's challenged to even walk down steps by himself, let alone run the free world. So anyway, that was an interesting headline. And then of course another headline, as we talked about today, is the big day because the politicians return after the July 4th break. Pressure mounts on Biden as 4 more lawmakers ask him to step down. 4 additional Democratic lawmakers said in a House caucus meeting that U.S. President Joe Biden should withdraw from the presidential race and allow another candidate to run. This is reported by NBC, citing several people familiar with the conversation. Adam Smith from Washington, Jerry Nadler, and Joe Morrell from New York. Nadler is a big shot, by the way, big shot in more ways than one, if you know what I'm talking about. And Mark Takano from California, who holds senior positions in the House committees. Therefore, now at least 10 Democratic representatives have already called on Biden to reconsider his candidacy. So we'll see what happens. Biden says, no, I'm not going to leave. I've got all these campaign stops planned. I've already agreed to a second debate with Trump. And so we'll see what happens. Now, again, we don't know what's going to happen here. There's 4 possibilities. Biden and Trump will face off, in November. Either Trump will win, number 1, or Biden will win, number 2. And yes, it is possible that Biden could still win. Um, believe it or not. Or there'll be someone else running against Trump, and Trump could beat that other person, or that other person could beat Trump. One of 4 possibilities. We don't know what is going to happen come November. And so we will see. We'll keep an eye on that. All right. Headline number 6, Russia fires hypersonic missiles at Kiev. Now, this is worrisome here. Russian missiles struck a children's hospital in Kiev and killed at least 3 people. Elsewhere in the Ukrainian capital, authorities say while another attack in the central Ukrainian city killed at least 10 people. It was the biggest bombardment of Kiev in several months. The daylight attacks include the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles, one of the most advanced Russian weapons, the Ukrainian Air Force says. The Kinzhal flies 10 times the speed of sound. 10 times the speed of sound, making it hard to intercept. City buildings shook from the blasts. Ukrainian President Zelensky said Russia targeted 5 cities with more than 40 missiles of different types. And again, this was Ukraine's biggest children's medical facility that they hit. There's no immediate word on the casualties there. And let's not forget Russia's role in the future. They're the leading nation, according to the Bible, Ezekiel 38, 39. It's the, Gog is the leader of this country that comes from the far north and leads this last days coalition against Israel, meaning they will be kind of the top dog in the world at that time. That's where things are going. The way we're looking at the world right now, with the United States falling by the wayside. And so what we're seeing with today's headlines is what we've seen every single day. 2000 to 3,500 years ago, when scripture predicted what's going to happen at the time of the end, we can put as we have done, a scenario together of what the world will look like. We've done this in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end. We explain it in great detail. And again, all our books are a free download from our website, Educating Our World. 65 books in total, 12 on Bible prophecy. Please take advantage of them. But the point we make, these different things we mentioned today, the globalism, the world desperately looking for a leader, Russia being the country that signs 9 through 11 that will lead the charge on the Ezekiel 38, 39 invasion. The United States will not be a player. All these things are incredibly falling into place every single day. And again, with what happened in France, you've got and the UK this week, 2 elections, 2 leaders, one socialist, one communist. Only a third of the people, not even a third in France, voted for this character and his party, yet they will lead, they will rule. And welcome to the world of government control, of where wealth is distributed, the redistribution of wealth. If you're rich, sorry, it has to go to the poor. Because this is just the way it's supposed to be. This is the communist and Marxist mindset and socialist mindset. And that's what we're seeing in these 2 countries, and the rest of the world will move in lockstep with it. All right, that's the latest. Now we'll see what happens today, because as the politicians get into Washington and the stories start coming out, we may have some blockbusters. Who knows what's going to happen when we come back to you later this afternoon. Until then, I'm Don Stewart. Thank you so much for watching. And until that time, as always, may our Lord richly, richly bless you.